All right, time for our crappy culture. So I'm going to wax a little philosophical here about something in our culture that really bothers me and the way that we have conversations. We were just talking about the imagination, how the left colonizes the imagination. They get inside our heads with their movies, with their TV shows, with their news programs, all the means, and with education, all the means of communication belong to them. You know, in the old video game, that thing, all your bases belong to us. Well, all the means of communication belong to them. And they use that to colonize the imagination. And one of the funny facts about the imagination is in the imagination, there's no time. Think about things that happened to you when you were a child, painful things that happened to you when you were a child, something your dad did that was mean or your mom did, whatever it is. If you think about that right now, you can get just as angry, just as hurt, just as sad as you were at the time. Time does not exist in the imagination. Everything is happening now. And one of the ways that the left controls our debate is because they understand the imagination better than the right does. The right really is always about facts. You know, we're always pointing at charts and saying, look at there, here's the numbers and the glass are going. And they're meanwhile telling stories because they know in the imagination, there's no time. Everything is happening now. So for instance, they'll talk about abortion. I've talked about this before, but I think it's the worst aspect of this. And they'll say, well, you know, a baby is not a person. An unborn baby is not a person, can't decide anything, can't, have preferences. And there's a guy, Peter Singer, and among others, who is an ethicist at Princeton, who says, yeah, you should be able to, to kill born children because they don't have choices. They can't decide things the way, for instance, even a dog can do. He will actually say that. But we live in time. We're not just who we are now, we're who we will become. And time really exists, So I could say, yeah, well, Peter Singer can't make a decision when he's asleep, so I can kill him. No, because eventually he wakes up. Eventually the child in your womb becomes a person, and so has the rights of a person, even now when he can't make decisions. But this also works in the past, when the people are talking about pulling down statues. And they're talking about, this guy, George Washington owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. They're eliminating history, right? They're eliminating the world that person lived in. George Washington, one of the greatest heroes liberty ever knew. He basically gave liberty its incarnation in our country by turning down kingship, which no one has ever done, maybe Cincinnatus in Rome, but he turned down a kingdom, basically. He turned down a continent, and by doing that, he gave us our liberty and started the traditions that have preserved our liberty. He couldn't understand why slaves didn't work hard, because the narrative of his time was so pervasive. Just like the narrative of abortion makes it possible for good people to have abortions now. 50 years from now, when the science tells us a little bit more about who babies are and how they develop and all that, it's not going to be true. But and then they're going to look back on us because they won't appreciate the different times. And they're going to say, how could you have been such butchers? How could you have done such terrible things? And all of this leads back to Me Too. Listen, I want women to be protected. I understand that they are hurt by the things men do. I understand there are women who were hurt by things I did, because when you're young, you don't understand this stuff and you're so sexed up and your hormones are going crazy that it's easy to make mistakes. It's the left that gave us the culture, the sexual culture we have now. Conservatives protested every step of the way. It's the left who told us that marriage didn't matter. It's the left that told us, women could have the exact same sex lives as men and they'd be happy. It's the left when we said to women, you shouldn't get drunk with a bunch of men. They said, you're blaming the victim. They're the ones who created the sexual culture. And in the 70s and the 80s, when the accusations against Brett Kavanaugh took place, we were living in a different world. I'm not saying it was right then and it's wrong now. It was wrong then too, but we were living in a different world, and the rules that he is being crucified with, even if it's true, are not the rules we were living by then. And I just think, it's so easy to make us forget there is such a thing as time, and we live in time, and the times change. And I think that it's just unfair. It is unfair. The left ruins everything. They ruined our culture. Now they're paying for the culture that they ruined. They're paying the price for what they did. And I think it's just unfair. They ruin everything. All right. It has been great being here. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Oh, hooray!
The Andrew Klavan Show is produced by Robert Sterling. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. Senior producer, Jonathan Hay. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover. Technical producer, Austin Stevens. Edited by Alex Zingaro. Audio is mixed by Mike Cormina. Hair and makeup is by Jesua Alvera. And our animations are by Cynthia Angulo and Jacob Jackson. The Andrew Klavan Show is a Daily Wire Forward Publishing production. Copyright Forward Publishing 2018.